Welcome, Sister Helena, to Life on the Rock.
Thank you. Good to be back.
And you've done some work for EWTN, Digital Catholic. Tell us a little bit about that show you did for us.
Right. So back in November 2016, you all, for me, shot my Digital Catholics seminars that I do. It's just, and so now it's an EWTN DVD called Digital Catholics. Okay. And basically, it's just a great discussion starter. So it's 5 30-minute segments introducing people to the Church's official teaching on media, which is media literacy. How do we engage in the world of media well, understanding it and using it well? And so it's broken down into 5 segments, starting off with just the basics of church teaching on media, parenting and teaching media, how do we help our young people? Then we talk about using media humanly, especially social media and our devices, and the time for our devices is not 24/7. Right. Surprise, surprise. And then the 5th segment, we examine the future of media. So where is all this digital media going? Right. Which of course is up to us. By the choices we make today of how we use media, thus will go media. And
I think it goes well with another love you have of the theology of the body. You teach online classes on that, and especially like in the social media world, these issues that theology of the body addresses come up so often. And it's a way of presenting the gospel, I think, that's very attuned to what our culture is really struggling with.
Yes.
Tell us, first give us a definition of theology of the body.
There's so many ways we could define theology of the body. Of course, it's from John Paul II. He coined that phrase. So it's not just a theology of the body among others. It's his. He owns it.
Right,
JP2 owns, and nobody did anything as comprehensive as he did. Right. So it's actually a Bible study. The big thick text goes from Genesis to Revelation, hitting almost every book of the Bible, looking at what is the human body saying? What is God saying about the human body? So we could have a theology of food. What is food saying about God? What is God saying about food? We could have a theology of sports. What is sports saying about God? What is God saying about sports? But if it's the human body, then God is saying a lot about it, and it's saying a lot about God because only the human person, which includes the human body, in creation is said to be in the image of God.
So the human person reveals something about God, and certainly God has revealed about us, you know, in all his revelation of who he is and his plan for our salvation, right? So there's this beautiful...
Right. And I call theology of the body the gospel of the body, because people no longer believe in spiritual authorities or texts or organized religion, or things they can't see, which is positivism. I only believe in what I can see. So John Paul II said, fine, we can start there. So the culture hasn't given up on beauty, love, the body, relationships, and God is all about those things. Right. So JP2, he was using phenomenology, the philosophy of phenomenology, which starts with the phenomenon, with what you can see. He said, fine, let's unpack that. And he also gave, in a sense, a new starting point for all of theology and all of philosophy, a return to the body, a return to the physical, instead of just tripping out on the spiritual and abstract thinking and making things up that may not even be in accord with reality, and then imposing on the physical world and our bodies what we want, what we think, what we feel.
Because we forget, like, being made in the image and likeness of God includes the body. I mean, we think of it, the spiritual part, we have an intellect and will, God has a divine intellect, divine will, but also our body itself images God and reveals our call to communion. You know, the male and the female have complementary differences. It allows them to unite, to procreate, to act as one there, two becoming one flesh. So reveals God as a Trinitarian of persons, a communion of persons.
And I didn't understand that until theology of the body. I thought it was basically my soul that was made in the image of God, because God is spirit. And that's kind of that dualism where we think our soul is better and higher and more pure and beautiful and spiritual than our body, which is lowly and dirty and tainted and earthly and animalistic. And it's like, no, both are human, both are good, both are me. Both are sacred. I don't have a body, I am a body.
And that is one of your favorite themes too, about the sacredness of the body. You said in your classes, and I was struck by this, you said some of your male students get that pretty quickly. Tell us about that.
So that might sound counterintuitive, but the body, part of the language of the body is saying men's sexuality is external to their bodies. That means something because the body means something. It's partly God's transcendence. Men are imaging God's transcendence. Women's sexuality is internal to their bodies. That's saying something because the body matters. The body is teaching us something. That's God's immanence, how God loves us immanently.
Right.
So men learn through externality. And the concrete physical world really speaks to them. Guys are all about the bottom line. They go right to the bottom line. Like, what is this for? What is this about? What is it? And John Paul II talks about this in his Love and Responsibility, that men understand the difference between the sexes better than women even do. So I talk to all ages. When I talk to teens and I say, so our bodies are sacred. Is the media telling you that? And they're like, no. and so we talk about sex and the real purpose and meaning of sex. And the guys start to like nod their heads. They're like, yeah, okay, you know, I could get that. And the girls, I'm kind of joking, but like, they're like, our bodies are sacred? What? You know, it's like, and the guys are like, oh yeah, I get that. Like, I get it. Because men are very good at objective truth. And women are very good at subjective truth, which is very important too. It's the personalization. Because if we just trip out an objective truth, we wind up in utilitarianism. How can I use this thing? How can I get the most out of this, the most money, the most whatever? And we can't live in a world like that. But we need men's gifts of objective truth and the ability to understand objectivity. Women personalize and humanize everything. So women are always going to insert the human element. How is this going to affect families? How is this going to affect children? You know, you can't do that to a human being, you know? So women will always, with that subjective truth, and John Paul II says we have to keep both the objectivity and subjectivity of the human person in balance at all moments.
Well, we'll continue with these themes and talk about the sexual revolution and the theology of the body, what has to say about that as well, just after this break.